Hi there. I'm Charlene Baldwin, and I'm coming to Soup Supper tonight to kind of tell you about a time when God became really big for me. And over the course of my life, I've been religious. I've gone to many churches. I've strayed sometimes. I've had doubts. I've felt not worthy enough to be someone that God would want to have in His dominion in heaven. However, there have been some times where He's done such wonders for me that I know how big He is. And one of the things that makes Him so big is the fact that He doesn't give up on anyone that He loves. And He wants us to share that love with others. Well, one of the first times that I thought about how God was so big was in the middle of the night, about midnight, in the Pacific Ocean. I used to live 4 blocks from the ocean, and oftentimes I would walk down to the beach at night by myself, 18 years old, putting myself at risk in many ways that I didn't even understand. So I know that God had a bubble of hope and belief in me to keep me safe those nights. Most of the time I would think, I'm just going to sit on the sand and watch the waves. But it didn't work that way. I loved the greatness of the ocean and that part that God made of the earth so much that eventually I would take my shoes and socks off and wander out into the waves. One night while I was wandering out in the waves, I had my arms up above my head and the waves were cresting right about chest level. And all of a sudden I felt my arm being grabbed and pulled down into the water, and a voice very gently saying to me, "You don't have to do this. There's another way." And of course I was surprised. I didn't expect anybody out there. And I turned and saw a young man who was thinking that I was out there trying to end my life, which was the farthest thing from my mind. And so I told him, I'm just out here because I love the water so much. And he laughed, but then he said, "Please come back with me to shore. Everyone will feel so much better." And I thought, what is he talking about? And I turned around and looked, and as we started walking back to the shore, 20 kids, probably maybe a little older than I'm sure a Christian youth group, were cheering and jumping and yelling because they thought that their friend had saved me. When I got back to the shore and he told them that the truth was that I just was out there because I loved the ocean, they all had a good laugh and kind of asked me to join them as they were walking off, but I didn't listen to that. I regret that. I wish I would have gone with them that night, but I didn't. Most of us kind of feel like, because we have the protection of God, that our lives should be pretty smooth and easy, and He's not going to put stumbling blocks in front of us or do things that can hurt us. And as of my life, I realize that really it's not that God does things, it's just that life is what it is, and we do have stumbling blocks. We want to think our life's going to be kind of a doot-de-doot-de-doo, doot-de-doot-de-doo, and we'll sail through. But really, it's a doot-de-doo splat. Doot-de-doot-de-doo splat. And I've had some big splats in my life. Of course, probably the first really hard splat was when Jake died. And that night, as I was sobbing and feeling my heart breaking, all of a sudden I felt Jake's presence, just plain as day. And he said to me, "Mom, I am happy. I'm out of pain. This is glorious. Don't worry about me." And I was so surprised. And then I realized, oh my gosh, God must have sent him to me to help me through that process. And in the end, after talking with him for just this short amount of time, I felt so comforted. And I knew God did that for me. And as Jake left, I said, "Why did you wait so long, even though it was just that first day, to help me, to know that you were okay?" And Jake said, "Well, Mom, you moved. Took me a while to find you. So even his sense of humor was in that conversation. And it made me realize how big God was, that he was able to send me that comfort from Jake. That was overwhelming to me. It was a beautiful, beautiful blessing. And of course, then things went well for quite a while. And I kind of forgot about that bigness of God. And I started remembering that, I don't know, is there really a God? But of course, he gave me wake-up calls again. And when Bruce passed away, there was another situation that let me remember how big God is and how there is a life after death. When Bruce was first becoming ill at the end, he had a dream that was very vivid to him of his mom. And his mom was coming into the office, his office at the grain growers. And she told him to come and greet her, and he ran on 2 legs, which of course, he didn't have, and ran to her and gave her a hug. And he said it was the most comforting hug that he had ever imagined. And that she said, it's time to go with me. Come with me to see God. But he said he couldn't do it. He couldn't do that to me. And so he let go of that embrace and was back in reality. So later, when it was time for him to pass on, I was able to tell him that if his mom came again, for him to go with God, to go ahead, that I would be okay, and that would be fine, that God was ready for him, his mom was ready for him, it would be okay. And in these experiences, to me, it brought me the closeness of how big God was by thinking about, as a parent, as a wife, how hard it was to have someone I love pass away. And then to think about how God, as a parent, had the grief and worry and pain of letting Jesus, his son, die as well, and so cruelly, and for all of us. It was in his greater plan, but how painful that must have been, and how hard for Mary to be there at the cross and watch her son suffer and die. And that made me think, oh my gosh, my part of that grief and worry and sadness and blessings that Christ died for me, for my part of it, I was overwhelmed and again felt like, gee, I am not worthy of God's love. But then God woke me up again and said, you know what? I have your back. Don't worry about it. And so through my life, I've thought about the little things, the do-de-do moments where nothing bad is going on, nothing hard, but maybe a little bit of trouble. And I remember then, call on God. He's big enough to help even with those little things. And then when the big splats come, you know that he's there for you. So my challenge is to remember how big God is, even in the little do-de-do parts of life. Thank you.